Would it surprise you to learn that according to the Sports Journal, 74% of today's collegiate athletes fails to meet the minimum recommended carbohydrate intake recommendations, while roughly half do not consume enough protein or calories to support their training and recovery? These nutritional gaps can significantly impact athletic performance, injury prevention and recovery, cognitive functioning, and long-term health. Equally as concerning is that recent research published by the National Institutes of Health reports as much as 50.4% of surveyed collegiate athletes experience food insecurity, often because of financial limitations and time constraints, without reliable access to nutritious food. Many athletes fail to meet the nutritional demands to perform at their peak and compete at the highest of levels. This week on Let's Have This Conversation, I sit down with my friend Thomas Jensen. He serves as the Assistant Athletic Director of Sports Nutrition for the University of Minnesota, to explore the critical role that nutrition plays in maximizing athletic performance, academic success, and overall well-being. Since joining the Golden Gophers in 2019, Thomas has led sports nutrition initiatives, which has helped student athletes optimize fueling strategies for competition, recovery, and everyday life. Before joining the Golden Gophers staff, Jensen served as the team dietitian for Minnesota United FC and previously worked for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He's also consulted with the Kansas City Royals and spent 4 years supporting athletes at the University of Nebraska. Jensen is also passionate about creating a more equitable and inclusive future for sports nutrition, which is both plausible and sustainable. To that end, through the Swan's Teaching Kitchen, Jensen teaches student athletes practical cooking skills, meal preparation, and evidence-based nutritional strategies which empower them to make healthier choices long after their playing careers have concluded. Whether you're a student athlete, coach, athletic administrator, sports dietitian, parent, or simply someone interested in maximizing health and performance, this conversation offers practical insights into science-based and evidence-based practical application of sports nutrition. And he joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Thomas, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn how to help student athletes meet and succeed their nutrition responsibilities. Great to see you today, my friend, and happy Thursday to you.
Likewise, yeah. Happy Thursday.
Absolutely. So, Thomas, I wanted to begin by asking you about your journey to Minnesota and why your job is your passion and your purpose, my friend. So, tell me why it's important for you to help student athletes reach their nutritional goals, my friend.
I'd say it's multifaceted. I mean, I like helping people, so I think it makes sense that I got into a profession that helps people in some capacity. And then I had an interest in nutrition in college, and so I was like, okay, I guess I could help. Well, I could learn more about nutrition myself, and then that kind of just bled into the opportunity to help other people with nutrition and athletes and athletics. It's a fun environment, and they're oftentimes pretty highly motivated individuals. And then as I've gotten into the profession, it's been I've realized not only is there the science of nutrition, but just the power of food and how food has a big role in all of our lives, from how we were raised and the identity food has to who we are as individuals, people, culture, that it goes far beyond just the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, but it goes really just further into who each of us are as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me about your journey to Minnesota because I know that you've consulted with the Kansas City Royals. You spent some time working with Minnesota FC, and you also have worked at the University of Nebraska. So, how did your feet land at the University of Minnesota, my friend?
So I got started. Yep. So my first full time position was at University of Nebraska, and I ended up spending 4 years there, working with quite a few different sports. And then during that time, because I was in Lincoln, Kansas City was about 3 hours south of there. I was able to work with them in the 2017 season, the Kansas City Royals, to where I could go and I could travel down there a couple times a month. And then during spring training as well, consulting with the Royals. So that was a good opportunity just to see how the professional world of sports nutrition works, because I would at that point only seen the collegiate setting at Nebraska. And then I went out to the University of South Carolina, where I worked there for just under a year. Got a chance to work with Don Staley for for the 2018 season, which, I mean, anytime you can work under a championship caliber head coach like herself, that was pretty incredible. And then I came up to Minnesota after that. There was an opportunity at Minnesota United to be the first full time team dietitian for Minnesota United FC. And I did that. And then because of an opportunity that I said yes to, it exposed me to this opportunity here at Minnesota, where I became the director of the sports nutrition department in September of 2019. And I'm still here. So starting my seventh year, seventh season this fall with Minnesota.
Well, there's nothing like a little job stability, right?
That's right. Yep. It's been a great place to work and a great opportunity to work in the Big Ten as well.
That's exactly right. And I'm curious, since you brought it up, what lessons did you learn about leadership and leading student athletes when you worked under Don Staley for that year, buddy? What did you learn about leadership from Coach Staley?
Holding athletes accountable. So you hold them up to a high standard. Specifically for them, that they recruit high level athletes. And so they know that they're capable of great things. And so holding them accountable to achieve those. And a lot of it's just, especially when it comes to nutrition, it's about buying into the process and being consistent with what you do. So showing up every day with the mentality that you want to continue to get better and you want to show up and embrace the process, and just holding one another accountable. That's something that I noticed that Dawn Staley does a great job of. She obviously surrounds herself with great people as well, because it's not just one individual. And I think she would probably say the same for herself, that it's success by committee. But just seeing how she carried herself and how she operated, she's a great individual, great human, and just how she holds people accountable to high standards. She brings that out in people. And there's some things that I can't even necessarily articulate, because they just have this special character about them. And that's something like Dawn Staley that she has.
Yeah, fair enough, my friend. And getting back to nutrition, you and I both know that it's based on creating good habits for student athletes, my friend. And so, from your perspective, how do you help student athletes develop the discipline, routines, and the mindset that allows them to reach both their athletic and personal nutritional goals? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, because I'm interacting with them in this setting, they're obviously highly motivated individuals. They have extreme talent in the sport that they play. And so they already naturally show up to the table with that. And so for me, it's really just getting to know them a little bit deeper on a deeper level to understand where they're at, where is their knowledge level when it comes to nutrition, and then also just figuring out what do they want to accomplish while they're here. Athletes are here with us from anywhere from 1 years to 4 years, and obviously, the longer we have them, the more we have an opportunity to help them grow and improve things. But they're highly motivated individuals, and so it's figuring out where are they at right now and where do they want to go? What do they want to achieve while they're here, and talk about how nutrition can play a role in that. Nutrition alone doesn't help teams win championships, but it's definitely part of the spoke in the wheel that contributes to it, whether it's keeping an athlete healthy so they're on the playing field or court or whatever it might be as much as possible, to recovering in between games as best as possible or coming back from an injury as quick as possible because ultimately they want to be on the field playing. And so it's whatever we can do to try to help them and really just tap into that motivation aspect that they all show up with.
Yeah, and as you know, you work in Minnesota, so the seasons they're changed on a dime. You know, especially the fall and winter sports. So I'm curious, living in Minnesota, what are some of the unique challenges from an athletic nutritional standpoint that you help athletes overcome, my friend?
That's a good question. I think with the changing of the seasons and just the availability, more and more athletes these days, they really care about where their food is coming from. They want to know how it's grown and where it's coming from. And so our growing seasons up here in the north that you're familiar with are short. And so by the time we start getting into the best time for fruits and veggies, we're essentially past that come school time because it's really July and August when that's the peak time for it. So it's trying to help them understand how to navigate the food offerings that we have in our dining facility for our athletes. And then a big thing is just the exposure to the sun or lack thereof. Being this far north, we have a lot of athletes in the general population, I would say in general, is deficient in vitamin D. And so it's just helping them to understand that while there are a few foods that you can get some vitamin D from, you're not going to get it nearly in the amount that you need. And so that supplementation oftentimes is the best way to get it. So trying to make sure that our athletes are not deficient in vitamin D because that has cascading impacts on their performance, their health, recovery, immune system, everything there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thomas, nutrition is often described as the foundation of performance. And as you brought up earlier, you help athletes truly understand the connection between what goes into their body and what they eat and how it helps them recover, compete, and perform at their physical peak. So I'm curious, how do you make the connection between what goes into an athlete's body and letting them understand the practical implications of what they're eating and how that translates to their quality of performance? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Try to keep it as simple as possible. Really just want athletes to understand that there's really easy way to go about how you go and you pick your foods, build your meals out that have an impact on your performance. So no matter where you're at in your training periodization schedule throughout the year, whether you're in a phase where you want to put on a lot of muscle mass, or you want to change your body composition, or if you're just in the competition phase where really it's all about just recovering from game to game, it's three simple processes that we stand by. So it's refuel, repair, and rebuild. So refuel is all about trying to get enough carbohydrates to repair your muscle glycogen, the energy that you lose from competition, and also to just to make sure your body has enough energy available throughout competition, so you don't hit that proverbial wall. Rebuild is about making sure that our athletes get enough protein, and that can come from whatever sources they prefer, whether they're a vegetarian, vegan diet, or if they're someone that eats animal protein, making sure that they're getting a wide, diverse source of their protein to keep their muscle mass and rebuild and repair from those injuries. And then repair is our last one, which is all focused on fruits and vegetables. We've all heard from our parents growing up, make sure you eat your fruits and vegetables. While that is true and it's rooted in good faith, not always are people interested in eating their fruits and vegetables. And really, we try to tie it back to it's a little bit further than just getting your vitamins and your minerals from it, but it's also your antioxidants, your phytochemicals, things that help your body and your immune system stay healthy so you can fight off cold and flus during the cold and flu season, and then also just your muscles so they're less sore in between competition so you feel as close to 100% by the next time you're stepping on the court for competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I admire about your story is you want to help to make nutrition more inclusive and equitable in sports nutrition and athletics. So I'm curious about why is that commitment to equitable nutrition important to you, and what do you think people need to know about the importance of sustainability when we talk about nutrition from an equitable standpoint? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, we briefly touched on it earlier, just about the importance that food has in our own personal identities, our upbringings, our cultures. If you think about it, we all probably have fond memories of food and gathering around tables for meals in our upbringing, whatever that might look like, or if it fits a place within our religious or our culture. Food has a really strong identity or pull to our identity. And that's something that has come to me later in my career, realizing that it's not just about eating this specific like chicken breasts and kale and rice, the bodybuilder diet. It's really more about how you tap into a person's culture, identity, because one, that makes us as humans feel connected with one another, which is incredibly important. And food is a very visceral, emotional food, or a very visceral, emotional product that we put in our bodies. But I also want to make sure that our athletes, especially here in Minnesota, that when they come into our dining facility, that they have the ability to feel like they can get what they want and try to really have it be a place where they can share their identity. So trying to work with our international student athletes to give us recipes and things that they would eat growing up and try to have replicate it the best we can. We'll never replicate it like maybe their grandparents or mom or dad might have made it at home, but we do our best to try to tie it back into here so they get a little taste of home, a little sense of identity. They can share their culture with other student athletes as well. I think that's incredibly important. And then the sustainability piece too is we're a large operation, so we have an opportunity to be intentional with our decisions. And so the more that we can reuse food, repurpose it in our meals, keep our food waste down, that's incredibly important. As much as we can source local foods in a sustainable way, develop partnerships with companies that we believe are doing the correct thing for the environment, for the animals. It's important to me to be able to support businesses like that with purchasing power, and then also I just believe overall that it's the right thing to do. And our athletes, I think, overall do appreciate it because the younger generations, they do start to care more about where their food is coming from, the sustainability of it, the environmental impact of it, the ethical treatment of animals. It all matters to them, and it's in line with what they want. And it's important to me as well.
Yeah, and I know that you also help athletes uh, with practical cooking skills and how to meal prep effectively through your role with the Swan's Teaching Kitchen, where you really get into those practical applications of fitness and meal prep. So tell me why it's important for you to give athletes those practical skills to not only survive, but to thrive from a nutritional standpoint.
Well, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day, and if you teach them to fish, you teach them to feed for a lifetime. And so for us, it is trying to help them understand and teach those life skills that will benefit them throughout life, whether they go on to the professional level or not. The ability to learn how to cook for yourself can be really enjoyable. It's a great skill just to have. And so we want to have a place where our athletes feel like they have an opportunity to learn that. And so we do collaborate with our chefs here to give athletes the opportunity to cook food, learn very basic things. So we'll start with basic knife skills so they know how to handle a knife properly, how to cut an onion or a pepper a proper way, and then elevate it from there to where they learn how to put meals together. It's always nice if you can teach yourself how to cook. While there's plenty of opportunities to have the convenience of not having to cook, and some people can afford to do that. There's many others who do prefer or need out of necessity to learn how to cook. And so we want this to be a place where not only are we're asking them to have an elevated sense of their nutrition and the food they put in their body. We want to teach them the skills so they can do that while they're here in Minnesota, but then also when they've graduated and they go on to whatever it is that they choose to do, they're taking a skill set with them that will pay dividends for them throughout their life. And so it's just important to be able to do that. And it's really nice to be able to collaborate with our chefs to be able to help them teach it, because chefs, that's their wheelhouse, their bread and butter. And so the collaboration between the chefs and then myself and my staff, we can provide the nutritional education for and the benefits of why maybe certain foods we include those and how they interact together. But then also the chefs teach those basic skills that they're experienced in that they can teach really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thomas, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because our friends at the Sports Journal say that on average, the average student athlete sometimes 74% of the time, college athletes fail to meet the minimum carbohydrate intake recommendations, while roughly about half of student athletes don't consume enough protein for the protein and calories to support their training and recovery. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings. Why do you think that is, and why it's so important to give student athletes the financial flexibility to also eat healthier? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, athletes, they, don't live in a vacuum. They live in society and in the world as well. And I think there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of opinions about nutrition and which one makes the most sense, which diet is the best. And there's a lot of vilification when it comes to carbohydrates. And so athletes, they hear that and they are exposed to that through social media and other means. And so they bring that with them here and understanding it's hard. We do have to help them understand the gap that between the energy levels that they expend through their sport, through their training, are quite high, quite demanding, and that they do need to increase their carbohydrate intake to match that. And if you don't do that over time, you do have performance detriments show up. And so trying to help them understand that they have high needs and that it's really important to consume carbohydrates and there's a benefit and a point to consuming them and that it's not vilified. So trying to help them connect those dots is important because we ultimately want them to be as healthy as possible. And to do that, they need to be consuming enough total calories and also enough carbohydrates to sustain energy. And carbohydrate is a muscle sparing nutrient. So it helps our bodies, if we're consuming enough, to also minimize the amount of protein degradation that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we were talking about earlier, throughout the season, nutritional needs of athletes constantly change through the season of training, or playing, or the intensity of travel, the demands on the academic schedule, and recovery and competition. So I'm curious to ask you about, not only creating habits like we talked about earlier, but the whole idea of fitness accountability. How do you help athletes stay accountable from a fitness perspective
From a fitness perspective,
or from a nutrition perspective? Sorry, what?
yeah. Well, I mean, there's different ways, so it really depends on the athlete and the individual and trying to get a sense of who they are. Some of them you can have more of a casual conversation with them to hold them accountable, and others might need a little bit more of straight, almost like a bullet pointed email where it's you very direct and specific with them, holding them in. Fortunately, really our work is all in behavior changes as dietitians, and so really it's important for us to help an athlete learn how to change their behavior over time, so it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like a strength coach where we can just get them into a room, a controlled environment, tell them exactly what to do, and then they execute it, and then they're done, and they can forget about it for the rest of the day. Food nutrition, they're eating 3-6 times a day, oftentimes outside of the walls of our facilities. And so there's a lot of ownership and autonomy that comes with it, which is great because you don't want to control food for individuals. And so really it's a blending of trying to meet them where they're at, again, building those relationships and understanding what their goals are and what do they want to achieve out of it. And then helping them figure out the roadmap. You build the roadmap for them and you talk to them about it, and holding them accountable throughout the way could be looking as simple as just check-ins, whether you run into them over in the weight room or in the team facility, checking in, see how things are doing, or it could be more structured where you meet with them consistently in a more formal setting, checking in that way. Every athlete's a little bit different. And you just have to kind of figure out what makes the most sense to them. It's kind of like communication. Everybody communicates differently and prefers to get feedback differently. And so it's just figuring out what makes the most sense for that individual relationship to hold them accountable as best you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thomas, I know that your role extends well beyond nutrition. It's really about developing trust and building trust and relationship building between coaches, athletes, parents, and the broader athletic community. So I'm curious, how does your philosophy on relationship building evolve depending on the coach, athlete, or parents, or school community leader that you may be working with, my friend? Tell me about how relationships for you translate into helping to improve performance and nutrition at the same time. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
That's a pretty loaded question. There's a lot there. I think it ultimately boils down to communication. So, um, figuring out what works for the different people involved, for the athletes, for the administrators, for our coaches. Uh, I'm a big believer in just having conversations with people and being very curious. Naturally, I'm a very curious individual, so that helps. I like to ask questions, like to help learn and understand where people's thought processes are coming from and why they value certain things over others. And then I try to be, and I'm not perfect at it, but try to be as clear and upfront about where I'm coming from and what my thoughts and expectations are, and then see how they align with the individual that I'm talking to. To That way, we're all on the same page, so we know exactly what we're talking about and both have an understanding. I think oftentimes communication breaks down when there's not enough context provided or assumptions are made, and so again, I'm not perfect, but I try to do my best to try to have as many just direct conversations, preferably in person, so that way you can read the person's body language, inflections of tones, not doing it over emails or text messages, because you never know how those are going to be inferred by the other person, and just really try to get a true understanding. Because at the end of the day, the people that I'm working with, whether it's an athlete, a coach, an administrator, ultimately we're here for the same goal. It's to take care of the student athletes, their health, their wellness, and to help win championships and win games. And so I think as long as we can always come back to remind ourselves that we're on the same team, we just have different roles to get to that end goal. Ultimately, I think that can kind of just help remind us that, hey, we're on the same team. We just have different things that we're doing to try to achieve it. Let's figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thomas, I also wanted to talk to you about the inevitability of stress eating as an athlete. Obviously, there's a lot of travel and there's a lot of road trips and fast food stops and all the rest of it, and the stress of performing or being under the microscope of performance can often lead to stress eating. So I'm curious, how do you help student athletes reduce stress from a nutritional standpoint? How can healthier eating help reduce the stress of performance, in your opinion, my friend?
I'd say that would be a more multi-discipline collaborative approach. So we have sports psychology and sports psychologists that are wonderful, that our athletes can always reach out to and meet with if they are working through any type of stress, whether that's stress related to their sport or if it's stress that's related to relationships or anything that's on the external side of the sports thing. Um, Collaborating with them is going to be really important because I'm not a psychologist. I can discuss the nutritional components of it, but anytime there's an external stress, it's really good that we collaborate with our sports psychology department as well, so that way our athletes know that they have access to talk to somebody to work through the stress mechanisms, triggers, everything there. And then we do try to remind athletes that obviously eating a healthful, well-diverse diet is beneficial for them. But at the end of the day, we are humans. And when we get stressed, we respond differently. Some people will not eat and they have to I have to really work with them on trying to remember to eat throughout the day. And then others that when they get really stressed, they will eat anything in sight, or they might turn to foods that we would consider not to be the most ideal at certain times. And so it's not about a punishment. It's not about asking them to try to be perfect. It's try to work with them to say, okay, if you're stressed, if we know we're in a stressful situation, what things can we keep on hand that are going to be nearby and around you that are more have a better nutrition profile than maybe going out and buying chips or cookies, whatever it might be that they turn to when they're stressed. So it's a really individual type approach depending on how the athlete responds and where they feel like they're at with their stress and how we can help them with nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Thomas, you've been at the University of Minnesota now for 7 years. So, what makes the University of Minnesota a unique place from both a nutritional perspective or just the university community as a whole? Buddy, why do you like being a Gopher, my friend? Tell me more.
The people by far. This administration, the athletic director, person I report to, they're all wonderful people. It's really important for me to be surrounded by good humans. And I really feel strongly that the administration and the support that we have here, we have good people. They care first and foremost about each one of us at a human level that I think is really important. They're understanding. Obviously, they're competitive, want to win. We're here to win championships. But we also don't lose sight of the fact that we are people. We have lives and things going on in our world outside of our job. And just feeling that support and working with people who, at the end of the day, really care about not just student athletes, but who you are as a person and your professional and personal growth. I mean, that's makes the world of a difference because I think we've all, uh, most of us have probably worked at a time or two where we've worked for bosses who maybe we didn't get along so well. And we know that that could be challenging. And oftentimes that's why people leave jobs is because of bad managers. And I just feel very supportive of the people that I have here who I work for and with. It's by far the people that keeps me here at Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm wondering your thoughts on, we talked about the finance of nutrition earlier, and I know you have NIL budgets in the Big Ten, but sometimes, the financial demands of nutrition can get expensive. So I'd be curious, what sort of a roadmap do you provide student athletes from a nutritional standpoint that won't break their bank, my friend? How can student athletes stay healthy on a budget, my friend? I guess is the question. I'm curious to get your thoughts there, my friend.
Yeah, well, our administration here, we do a wonderful job of providing quite a few meals to our student athletes, which is awesome. The more we can try to decrease the reliance that they have on themselves for food is amazing. But that's just getting creative. So we might have athletes who live with one, two, three, or four roommates, and if they all really enjoy cooking or like to make meals together, then all of them going in on groceries and meals is a great way to split the cost up amongst numerous people. Try to utilizing bulk carriers, bulk grocery stores. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Costco. That can be a way if somebody has a membership to be able to tap into that for bulk ordering. But then also too, just looking at the different grocery stores in the area and how can they go about trying to buy foods that are either on sale. You could always go through the flyers and try to choose things that are on sale versus maybe coming up with a recipe without looking at that. So it really just depends on the individual. Fortunately, though, because we offer quite a few meals for our athletes, that there's very few that they have to worry about on their own. But those are just some of the ways. Like, can you tag team it with your roommates? Do you have a membership to Costco, or you can buy things in bulk and store things in freezers? Over time, you can pull it out. Meal prepping for certain things that your schedule doesn't allow you to get back home. Can you meal prep and bring something with you? And then just try to look at grocery stores, flyers, shop the sales, that type of thing can help with athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Thomas, I'm also curious to ask you about the whole idea of mentorship from a sports nutrition perspective. And what I mean by that is, what gives you the most satisfaction when an athlete comes to you and says, the nutritional plan you have me on really helped me accomplish X, Y, and Z. So tell me about, from a sports nutrition perspective, the importance of mentoring, because I know every athletic administrator I talk to, regardless of what part of the department they work in, it's all about making the athlete or centering the athlete to maximize their performance. So, from a sports nutrition perspective, what gives you the most satisfaction when an athlete says, "What you really did help me accomplish this certain goal"? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
I mean, anytime you hear that, obviously it makes you feel good because we are here and we want to help our athletes feel good and achieve their goals. And so I think anytime we can help, I think I take pride in helping an athlete make decisions for themselves. So asking them questions that make them think and reflect based on who they are as an individual. How do certain decisions fit in with who they are? Um, I try not to tell athletes what to do exactly unless that's something that they explicitly say that they want. But I get a lot of satisfaction in helping them reflect and ask questions themselves that leads them ultimately to their answers that for what they need to do to achieve their goals, and obviously just be supportive along the way, help provide the resources and the guidance for them to achieve it. That's always satisfying.
Yeah, and I've got two questions left for you, and I'm just curious, Thomas, from when you work with athletes who are Muslim or who have different, dietary restrictions because of religious reasons, but they still need to perform. How do you help them navigate that time, my friend?
Yeah, it's very individualized. So athletes that celebrate Ramadan, for example, a lot of their fueling is going to obviously take place at sundown and before sun up, and so it's a collaborative approach where you maybe work with the strength coach and they change the workout times for the athlete as opposed to working out during the day. So maybe they work out later at night or early in the morning, and then you just try to help them understand the timing of their nutrition and when they should be eating and how to take advantage of the windows that they can eat and just do your best because you understand that what they're doing is important to them and who they are as an individual. And while their sport is important, it may take a backseat in that short period of time for them to do whatever it might be that they feel is appropriate for them. But just helping understand, like, okay, you have these demands still, you're still training, now you're just training at a different time. So let's try to focus heavily on these times of the days to try to eat a meal. Let's make sure we're getting plenty of carbohydrates, adequate protein in at this meal, recovery here, and then kind of navigate it through that way for each individual while still respecting their wishes and what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. No. Thomas, if I ever come down to the University of Minnesota, what are some of the athletic traditions that you're most prideful in? And what do you like being about being a gopher from a sports tradition perspective, my friend?
I think we have one of the better mascots in the country, Goldie. I think what Goldie does is pretty fun to watch and entertaining, whether you're at a football game watching them or you're at a basketball game or hockey game. We have a lot of tradition with our hockey programs here. And so going to a hockey game is always a lot of fun, great crowds, pretty rowdy. We have a lot of good athletes that compete there. But I would say overall, like Goldie to me is a favorite because they're pretty entertaining to watch at different sporting events.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a cultural perspective, what makes someone authentically Minnesota, my friend, in your perspective?
Ooh, culturally authentic. So I would probably say something along the lines of like the passive aggressive. I feel like Minnesotans, they're not that it's a Minnesota nice, but uh, we have a streak in us as well. And I guess I'll claim myself since I've lived here now for 9 years. I guess it's been 8 or 9 years. Uh, Probably that passive aggressive because I hear that a lot from people between the Minnesota nice, but at times we can get after it too.
Fair enough, my friend. And finally, tell me, my friend, first of all, I want to know how you survived the Minnesota winters before I ask you my last question, my friend. What's the key to surviving a Minnesota winter?
The advice I got was get a good pair of boots, get a good winter jacket, and take a trip in January or February. And so try to live by those three things, get a good pair of boots. I think the saying is, well, there's no bad weather, there's just bad attire or bad clothing. And I think that's pretty true. I'm pretty impressed the resiliency of Minnesotans and how they're very active even during the cold spells up here. They're still out running, biking, snowshoeing, ice skating, whatever it might be. But I'd say get a good pair of boots, a good jacket, and then plan a trip somewhere warm in January or February.
Absolutely. That's Minnesota tough if there ever was one, right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
and finally, Thomas, tell me, from your perspective, how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be remembered, my friend?
Hopefully that I was authentic, caring, and that I made people feel heard and seen. I think that's really important to me.
Absolutely. And finally, tell me if people want to get connected with you personally or the athletic department, what's the best way they can do that, my friend?
Well, they can probably find me on gophersports.com and there, and they could always shoot me an email. I'm not too heavily on social media, but I am on LinkedIn as well, so somebody could find me on LinkedIn if they wanted to.
Fabulous, my friend. Well, I want to thank you for all the good work that you do to help athletes fuel, recover, and perform at their best, my friend, and provide them with a real chance for nutritional prosperity. I really enjoyed engaging in conversation with you this afternoon, my friend, and I want to thank you for being here. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you having me. It was good talking with you.